Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness in our society. It's something we fear, something we try to avoid because we've been taught that being vulnerable means being exposed, fragile, or out of control. But this perspective is incomplete, even misleading. Vulnerability is not about being weak. It's about showing up, allowing ourselves to be seen, even when we don't have all the answers. It is the very thing that connects us to others and to our own humanity. In truth, vulnerability is a source of immense strength. It takes incredible courage to be vulnerable, to allow ourselves to be seen in our raw, unfiltered state. It requires bravery to step into uncertainty, knowing full well that things might not go the way we hope, or that we might be judged or misunderstood. It's not about perfection, and it's not about controlling how we are perceived by others. Rather, it's about showing up with all of our imperfections, owning them, and still choosing to engage with the world and with others in a meaningful way. When we embrace vulnerability, we are choosing authenticity over defensiveness, trust over fear. We acknowledge that we cannot control every outcome, and that in itself is a form of strength. When we open ourselves up to vulnerability, we are letting go of the need to be perfect. And in doing so, we allow space for connection and genuine human interaction. We invite others into our world and in turn create an environment where they feel safe to do the same. The power of vulnerability is that it breaks down the walls we often build to protect ourselves. It is through vulnerability that we begin to truly experience intimacy, compassion, and trust, not just with others, but with ourselves as well. By allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, we open the door to deeper relationships, richer experiences, and a life that feels full of meaning and purpose. The courage to show up is at the heart of vulnerability. It's easy to stay on the sidelines, to hide behind a facade, to avoid situations where we might have to face discomfort, uncertainty, or potential failure. But when we choose to show up authentically, vulnerably, with all of our fears and doubts, we are tapping into a form of courage that goes far beyond what we often think of as bravery. Showing up isn't about being perfect or knowing everything. It's not about having all the answers or being fully prepared. It's about the willingness to face the unknown, to take the first step into unfamiliar territory, knowing that we may stumble, we may make mistakes, and we may feel exposed. This is the essence of vulnerability. Being willing to enter into a space where things are not certain and being open to whatever might come our way, despite the fear that often accompanies it. To show up, we need to embrace discomfort. We need to lean into the anxiety that can come with stepping outside of our comfort zones. This is where growth happens, and this is where courage is forged. We don't grow by staying safe, staying comfortable, or staying in our bubbles. We grow when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, when we show up even when the outcome is unclear, and when we allow ourselves to be seen, even when it's difficult. But showing up also means being present, not just physically, but emotionally. It's about fully engaging with whatever situation we find ourselves in. This requires us to bring our whole selves into the moment, to be open to the experience, and to be willing to engage with others in a meaningful way, even if we don't know what will happen next. Vulnerability in this context is about being emotionally available, about not holding back or closing off for fear of rejection or disappointment. It is a choice to be seen and heard, to participate fully in life with all of its messiness and unpredictability. The courage to show up also involves the willingness to be imperfect, to acknowledge that we might not always get it right, and to be okay with that. It's about embracing failure as part of the journey, not as a reflection of our worth. When we show up, we give ourselves permission to be human, to be flawed, to make mistakes, to learn, and to grow from those experiences. And it is in this process of showing up and learning that we begin to develop resilience, strength, and a deeper understanding of who we are and what we are capable of. Vulnerability is the gateway to connection. At its core, human connection is built on shared experiences, on understanding and accepting one another for who we truly are. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we invite others to do the same. And in doing so, we create bonds that are deeper and more meaningful than surface level interactions. Vulnerability is the bridge that connects us because it opens up a space where we can see each other's humanity and not just the polished versions we often present to the world. Too often we hide behind masks, whether they are made of perfectionism, pride, or fear, believing that if we show any sign of weakness, we will be rejected or misunderstood. But it is through these very imperfections that we connect most profoundly with others. When we share our struggles, our fears, our doubts, we give people permission to do the same. This act of sharing, of revealing the parts of ourselves that we may normally want to keep hidden, is what fosters empathy and builds the kind of trust that allows relationships to flourish. The beauty of vulnerability is that it reveals our shared humanity. We all face challenges and we all experience pain, fear, joy, and love. When we are vulnerable with others, we tap into these universal experiences. This isn't about oversharing or being excessively emotional. It's about being real and honest about our experiences and feelings. It's about opening up to others in a way that encourages them to open up as well. The simple act of being honest about our struggles, about not having everything figured out, can be incredibly freeing for both ourselves and the people we connect with. Vulnerability also plays a crucial role in creating an environment of belonging. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we communicate to others that it's okay to be themselves, flaws and all. We create a space where others feel safe enough to let down their guards and be their authentic selves. And this is the foundation for building deep, trusting relationships. Without vulnerability, we remain isolated in our own fears, and the connections we form are shallow and guarded. Moreover, vulnerability isn't just about sharing pain or hardship. It's about sharing joy, hope, and the things that make us feel alive. Whether it's celebrating a small win or expressing gratitude, vulnerability allows us to share our positive experiences just as openly as our challenges. It's through this openness in both our struggles and our triumphs that we truly experience the depth of human connection. It's through vulnerability that we not only build empathy and trust, but also create an environment where people feel seen, valued, and heard. Vulnerability is at the heart of creativity. It's a well-known fact that creativity thrives in environments where risk-taking is encouraged, where people are free to experiment, fail, and learn without the fear of judgment. The very act of creating, whether it's art, a new idea, or a solution to a problem, requires us to step into the unknown. And the unknown is inherently vulnerable. It's not comfortable to put ourselves out there, to expose our ideas, our process, or our work to others, especially when the outcome is uncertain or when we don't know how others will respond. But it is this vulnerability that fuels creativity. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. We release the need for perfection, and in doing so, we create the freedom to explore, to experiment, and to innovate. Vulnerability is what makes creativity possible because it's what allows us to take the first step, to make the first mark, to try something new, even if it feels risky or uncomfortable. Without the courage to be vulnerable, we close ourselves off from the very process that leads to new ideas and new ways of thinking. Creativity isn't just about being innovative or coming up with something original. It's about being willing to fail, to make mistakes, and to embrace imperfection. Vulnerability is essential to this process because it's in our failures, our missteps, and our mistakes that we often find the greatest opportunities for growth and learning. It's through vulnerability that we allow ourselves to learn from our mistakes, to push past the fear of getting things wrong, and to keep moving forward despite setbacks. Without vulnerability, we limit our ability to experiment and explore, and without these essential elements, creativity cannot flourish. Vulnerability also helps us break free from the constraints of perfectionism. When we feel the pressure to always get things right, to present ourselves and our work as flawless, we stifle our creativity. Creativity doesn't come from a place of perfection. It comes from a place of exploration, of curiosity, and of embracing uncertainty. When we are vulnerable, we release the need to have everything figured out, and we allow ourselves the space to make mistakes, take risks, and ultimately discover new paths and new ideas. Moreover, vulnerability in creativity is about being open to feedback. When we put our work out into the world, we are vulnerable to criticism and rejection. Yet this is also where growth and improvement come from. Vulnerability allows us to take in feedback, to learn from others, and to refine our work. Without this openness, we risk remaining stagnant in our creative endeavors, never reaching the full potential of what we are capable of creating. Vulnerability is not just about exposing ourselves to others. It's about being open to the possibility of transformation, to the idea that we can improve, grow, and evolve through the creative process. Ultimately, it is vulnerability that invites creativity to flow. It encourages us to embrace our imperfections, to take risks, and to approach the world with an open mind. It allows us to move beyond fear and perfectionism and to step into the realm of innovation and discovery. Without vulnerability, creativity is constrained. With vulnerability, it becomes boundless. Vulnerability is the pathway to authenticity. In a world that often demands conformity, where success is measured by how well we fit in or how perfectly we perform, it can be difficult to embrace our true selves. We are taught to hide our flaws, our doubts, and our uncertainties because they are seen as weaknesses. But vulnerability is the key to breaking free from these expectations and embracing who we really are, without the filters, the facades, or the masks we sometimes feel pressured to wear. Being authentic means allowing ourselves to be seen for who we truly are without the need to uphold a certain image or to please others. It requires courage to step into our vulnerability, to show up as our genuine selves, flaws and all, and to let go of the constant pressure to appear perfect. The beauty of vulnerability is that it allows us to stop pretending, to stop playing roles, and to just be real, raw, and unpolished. When we embrace vulnerability, we give ourselves the freedom to live authentically, to make choices that align with our true values, and to express ourselves in a way that feels true to who we are. This authenticity isn't about being perfect or flawless. It's about being honest with ourselves and others about who we are, what we need, and what we stand for. It's about acknowledging our imperfections, our struggles, and our humanity, and accepting that these things are a part of us. In a society that often values superficiality or success based on outward appearances, embracing vulnerability means rejecting these external standards and instead focusing on what truly matters, being true to ourselves. It means letting go of the fear of judgment or rejection and instead choosing to live in alignment with our authentic selves. Vulnerability also plays a crucial role in the way we form deep, meaningful connections with others. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we give others permission to do the same. We create a space for real, honest conversations where we can talk about our true feelings, experiences, and dreams. This authenticity nurtures relationships, whether they are personal or professional, because it fosters trust, mutual respect, and understanding. People are drawn to authenticity. It is magnetic. When we show up as our true selves, we invite others to do the same, and in doing so, we build stronger, more genuine connections. To live authentically is to accept ourselves as we are, with all of our strengths and weaknesses, our successes and failures, our joys and sorrows. It is about recognizing that we are enough as we are, and that our value does not depend on how others perceive us or how much we conform to societal expectations. Vulnerability is the path to this realization because it allows us to strip away the layers of pretense and self-doubt that often keep us from fully embracing who we are. When we are vulnerable, we stop hiding behind the masks we feel compelled to wear, and we begin to show up as the real, imperfect, and beautiful individuals we were always meant to be. Moreover, embracing vulnerability leads to a deeper understanding of our own needs and desires. When we stop pretending to be something we are not, we create space to explore what truly matters to us. We can make decisions from a place of honesty and integrity rather than out of fear or the desire to please others. Vulnerability allows us to live in alignment with our core values and to build a life that is truly our own, not one based on external pressures or societal standards. It empowers us to set boundaries, to say no when necessary, and to prioritize what truly nourishes us. It encourages us to trust ourselves, to listen to our inner voice, and to honor our authentic path. In a world that often tells us to conform, to hide our vulnerabilities, and to fit into predefined molds, embracing vulnerability is an act of rebellion. It is an act of courage, of self-love, and of profound truth. It is the gateway to living authentically, to creating deep connections, and to experiencing life in its fullest, most meaningful form. It is through vulnerability that we free ourselves from the need for external validation and step into the power of living our truth unapologetically and without fear.